Kumar Singh, Secretary of Defence, now joins us in an exclusive conversation with my colleague Parikshit Luthra.
Needs no introduction. He's someone who has been holding almost 20 to 30 meetings with the industry almost on a daily basis. He was at the DPIIT, helming the DPIIT a few months back, and he's done a lot of work with FDI, with startups, with investments in the country. So he is someone who's very familiar with the next generation reforms that the government is working on. But let me focus on the defense sector right now. And defense is going to be the major Capex push of the government over the next 5 to 10 years. And that is because we don't have a choice when it comes to self-reliance. It is something that we realized the importance of more during Operation Sindoor. And since then, there have been regular meetings at the Defense Ministry to how to make sure we can bridge those gaps in our defense setup. Secretary R.K. Singh, let me begin by asking you about the very important 15-year defense technology and innovation roadmap that the Defense Ministry recently came up with. Could you give us a sense of what's going to be the value of the kind of acquisitions that we're looking at over the next 10 to 20 years?
Yeah, thank you, Parikshit, for having me here. So the previous session gave us a nice lead up to this one because defense was identified as one of the mega trends by one of the previous speakers. I think that's correct. If you're looking at it in value terms, I think you can expect in Capex terms somewhere between 25 to 30 billion dollars minimum per year over the next decade, maybe a little more, I would say, rather than less. In terms of the technology roadmap, the roadmap has been sort of put out by the services in the public domain. It's available now. It focuses on technologies that are of the future, whether it is AI, whether it is hypersonics, whether it is other types of standoff weapons, it is space, various types of precision ammunition, all of those technologies that they feel would be required in the future, nuclear-powered ships, etc., etc. So yeah, it's a fairly comprehensive roadmap of where they think the world is going and where we need to ensure that we try to ensure that we leverage products and platforms from those kind of cutting-edge technologies.
Secretary Singh, when it comes to having this mega innovation and technology roadmap, how much of this are we looking to build indigenously? How much are we looking to acquire? And what's going to be the focus on indigenization?
So our current plans are that at least 75% of our Capex will be spent within the country. That's our normative target. Last year, we actually did 88% of our Capex within the country. It will go up and down a little bit because it depends on, in certain areas where your technology readiness level, what they describe as TRL, is fairly high, where DRDO or other agencies have developed fairly strong technological bases, then you'll probably, do entirely indigenous procurement. Then there would be an intermediate category where you would need to do, hopefully, manufacturing within the country, but based on technology transfers from other countries. And there could be a smaller set of areas where foreign OEMs would not be willing to give you the latest technologies, and your own access to such technologies is a long way off. In those cases, you may have to, do a certain amount of, off-the-shelf global buys as well. So I would say that we need to take a fairly pragmatic look at all of these three options. But the trend should be clear. We are going to double down in terms of our indigenization efforts. 75% will be the minimum. Hopefully, we'll never go below that. So when I mentioned 25 to 30 billion every year, most of that will be spent within the country, whether it is in terms of entirely Indian design or whether it is based on some levels of foreign technology transfers as well.
Right. Just to put this into context for members of the industry sitting with us right now, investors from India and abroad, when it comes to building the capacity for new age warfare in the country, what is it that's really taking away the most of your time? What's going to be the 3 or 4 big focus area of the government when it comes to spending money on new age warfare and new age warfare capabilities?
Well, I mean, the obvious answers are different types of standoff weapons, drones, unmanned combat vehicles, including underwater drones. We also need to really focus on improving our satellite imagery so that we get real-time satellite imagery available to this country, which really depends on putting enough satellites into space, which hopefully with SBS-3 will happen. In all of these areas, then there are, of course, various types of precision munitions that you need. All of these are areas where, India doesn't always have the technology, and those are the areas where, including MALE and HALE category drones, where we will need to do some kind of technology transfer, but insist on manufacturing within the country. And I'm mentioning drones because we are just about to release an RFP for about 30,000 crores worth of MALE category drones, which will be made in India. And we would hope that perhaps there could be an Indian design element there. But we are open to either Indian design or Indian manufacturing with foreign technology. But either way, it will be made within the country. Those are the kind of areas where we'll be doing more and more. And I mean, just to give you another example, we've, for example, whether it is missiles or whether it is different kinds of munitions, for a long time we've essentially ensured within this country that missiles are made by BDL, one public sector company. Munitions are largely made by MIL, which is another public sector company. The private sector is unable to invest partly because you've created almost a de facto reservation, or you've allowed essentially nominations to be given to these companies. The problem is that their capacity to produce is quite limited. So for long duration wars, you'll need to have much greater surge capacity. And for that purpose, we've now tried to sort of ensure that we move away from nominations, we move away from product reservations, and we create enough incentives on the basis of order visibility for the private sector to invest in all of these spaces.
Right. Could you give us a sense of what will be the requirement when it comes to having ballistic missiles, supersonic missiles in the arsenal over the next 15 to 20 years, sir? And why would you need, and explain us the need, why you would need more manufacturers in this space?
Essentially, if you see what has been happening in recent wars, you will find that the number of missiles being fired are quite huge. India, of course, followed a different path. We used it in a very calibrated way, and we achieved termination of the conflict with calibrated use of our standoff missiles. But you cannot assume that every time the duration of the conflict can be curtailed. And if it is not curtailed, then you will start running out of stocks if you don't have enough, wide industrial capacity to make missiles. If you're making only 100 missiles in a year, for example, you will obviously run short in a few, after a few months if there's a long duration conflict. So that's the kind of thing where we need to build up that very diversified, large public and private industrial base. And that is what we are aiming to do through our period of reforms, combining, supply side reforms in terms of ease of doing business with buying side, demand side reforms in terms of providing orders on a level playing field to the private and the public sectors.
You recently modified the Defense Procurement Manual, giving more visibility of orders, giving more power to the armed forces to buy and maintain their platforms and to address their needs quickly. But what would be the next phase of reforms that we can expect from the Defense Ministry?
So, as you mentioned, Parikshit, the Revenue Procurement Manual deals with the consumables that the armed forces need in terms of ammunitions, different types of spares, things like that. There, the reform is on the lines of what I mentioned, that we, where items are available, for example, on the government e-marketplace, they don't have to run around, taking approvals. They can straight away buy from GEM. Where both private and public sector capacity exists, or we want to induce private sector capacity, we remove dereservation and do things through open bidding. And I'm talking about different types of ammunitions and artillery shells. In general, the idea is to go from any kind of nomination-based cost-plus type of contracts to much more open competitive bidding with full price discovery. And you mentioned the decentralization and the delegation of authority. Also for startups, we are trying to create in this new manual a separate section where if a startup in association with the services develops a particular product which is essentially tailored to meet the needs of the armed forces, we need to give him some assurance in terms of orders. And the idea is to give him at least a 5-year period during which he has, he kind of is allowed to sort of meet those requirements directly. After 5 years, we'll open it up because you can't tie yourself down to one guy too much. It leads to, too much of market power, and thereafter some level of, price gouging as well.
The Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020, this has been under review. This was said to be the big reform of 2025. By when can we expect that? And what do you think will be the thrust of reform in the DAP rules?
Yeah, so I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned, but in the revenue procurement manual, you're talking about an annual budget of about 1 lakh crore. The capital procedure, which is the defense acquisition procedure, is much bigger. It's almost double that size. It's about 1,80,000 crore. I'm sure it will, hit 2 lakh crores in the next couple of years. That reform process is now underway. Consultations, including with industry, is ongoing. And the target we have set ourselves is that by the end of the year, that is by December, in the year of reforms and in line with the other reforms that government is doing in terms of ease of doing business, in terms of decriminalization, in terms of other steps to reduce the compliance burden, we will, in the same light, we will make this document for Capex much more simple, much more friendly to the private sector and to the startups, and sort of compress some of the process timelines to make it, to use technology to cut down, delays in areas like field evaluation trials, cost negotiations, those kind of things. So the intent is you'll have the new DAP 20 hopefully by the new year of next year, by the first day of the next year, and that will be a kind of a follow-up to the revenue procurement reform that we've just completed.
Right. Now, considering since Operation Sindoor, we've gone in for replenishment procurements, we're going in for long-term procurements as well. To what extent do you feel that the ministry is going to either meet or exceed budgetary estimates?
Well, last year for the first time we exhausted our budget. I think it is challenging to spend money in the Indian context given the, the very elongated sort of fail-safe type of procedures that we follow in terms of collegiate decision-making, approvals at the highest level, involving, a lot of interministerial consultations. Last year we did it, and I'm sure this year also we'll do it. It really depends on how many contracts you end up signing. And last year we did a record number. This year we've already hit 3/4 of that, 1,50,000 crores worth of contracts we've already signed, or are in the process of signing if you include the LCA program. So we are confident we can do at least 2 lakh plus crores this year. And if we keep this up, then in terms of committed liabilities itself, you will ensure that the budget increasingly gets fully utilized. As you do that, as you show to the Ministry of Finance that you can really start exhausting the budget and not surrendering some of the amount every year as we used to do earlier, I'm sure you can ask for more. So it's a two-way street. Let's start confidently ensuring that we utilize our budget entirely, which I think we will do this year. And then we can, over time, ask for at least a 10 to 15% increase every year. Incidentally, the services, through their capability development plans, which they have a 5-year and a 10-year capability development plan. In all of their estimates, a 10-year increase in Capex year on year is adequate to meet their requirements. And I'm pretty confident that Ministry of Finance will have no problems in providing a 10% CAGR on the present Capex year to year, because given the fact that in nominal terms our GDP is also growing almost at that rate.
Right. So you probably, the recommendation from you would be to increase the defense capex in the next union budget, which is not very far, but at least 10%.
At least 10% in nominal terms, but if you're asking me for a longer term appraisal, I would say that given the geopolitical turmoil as well as the the neighborhood, which is very challenging, before in a medium term sense and before the Finance Commission, I'm going to project a bit more. So it's a 10% year on year right now, but with the Finance Commission, I'm going to ask for at least a 17 to 18% year on year increase over the next 5 years. Because otherwise our share of the GDP actually has shrunk quite a bit. It's gone below 2%. And I think nobody can argue against at least a 2.5% share in GDP in the medium term, and maybe taking it further to 3%, maybe in about 10 years' time.
Right, and to keep it in line with some of the bigger developed nations when it comes to defense spending, I'd like to ask you about the gaps when it comes in our fighter jet capabilities, sir. There is a AMCA program that is on. There is a fighter jet engine program that is on simultaneously. You've explained us earlier that these are both programs which have a long 10-year horizon, and somewhere they will meet, they will merge, possibly. But how do we meet our short-term needs? There are two countries there are three countries in the world with fifth-generation fighter capabilities. You've got China, you've got Russia, you've got the United States. What are our options? Our options are only US and Russia. How necessary is it for us to take the decision on acquiring fifth-generation fighter jets immediately? What is the horizon, timeline that you could possibly give us by when the government would have to take a decision?
Parikshit, I really don't want to talk about specific platforms or procurements because that leads to too much of speculation, and these are sensitive matters. What I would say is that if you don't have fifth-generation aircraft immediately, or if negotiations are ongoing, you can still make up for it or offset any advantage that the adversary has by creating enough offensive capacity in terms of larger numbers of, say, 4 or 4.5 generation aircraft, and equip them with better weapons. Because besides the platform, it is the weapons that matter. So, yeah, I mean, we will... the Air Force has certain capability gaps that it has pointed out. The government will work on filling all of those gaps. You will find in the coming days, in terms of the procurement cycle, whether it is in terms of multiplier capabilities like refueling aircraft, like AWACS, all of those procurement decisions will be visible to you. And in terms of, the 4.5 generation fighter aircraft also, you will see some procurement decisions coming, but I'm not going to sort of second guess the decision making, because that is really not fair at this point of time to start talking about it. We should talk about procurements only at a certain time when it is cleared by the DSC or when it is cleared by the top level in government. Before that, talking about it creates too much noise. And we shouldn't have so much noise in procurements. Procurement should be done on on the basis of requirements and technological assessments, techno-commercial assessments by the services and by the acquisition wing.
Important points there, sir. Now, as you've spoken about 4.5 generation fighters, there have been reports in the media how the Indian Air Force has made a proposal to acquire 114 Rafale fighters. What stage of discussion is this, and is the Defense Ministry, is the government likely to take a decision on acquiring a large set of 4.5 generation fighters in this fiscal itself?
Again, I can't talk about specific platforms. I don't think it's appropriate because it's, it's not something that we should be discussing on a daily basis. I would only say that when the last Air Force Commanders Conference took place, after that the Raksha Mantri asked me to create an important roadmap, capability enhancement roadmap for the Air Force. We've done that. Based on that roadmap, we've started various types of procurement activities. All of those will become visible to you in the coming days. I would love to say that it can be done within this financial year, but the decision making is not entirely only at my level. But yes, I'm sure you'll see visibility on all of those items I mentioned: 4.5 generation aircraft, refuelers, AWACS, weapons, all of those. But individual decisions I will not, discuss too prematurely.
Right. I would also like to ask you how we are balancing our relationship with the United States and Russia. Russia has been a long-standing defense supplier to India. The well-known notion is that 60 to 70% of our equipment is still of Russian origin. We are trying to expand our relationship with the US, with France, with European countries, and other nations as well. During this time of trade volatility and trade talks with the US, how are we going to balance this and make sure our needs are met over the next 3 years or so?
Well, I think the Honorable Prime Minister has made it clear that the balancing is on the fringes. The main trend is actually for indigenization. And ultimately, we will either design and make our own, or we will take TOT but make within the country. And whichever country meets our requirements of this type, that means they are willing to at least technology transfer and make in India, or they are willing to, ensure that critical technologies are shared, or at least designs are shared for manufacturing. So between the two, I would say that we will take a call for individual platforms and weapons depending on, on the cost-benefit ratio for us for each of these systems. And you use the word balance, that is correct. We will balance our requirements. But at the end of the day, we will go by our service requirements of what we need. I'm sure there will be adequate opportunities in our defense budget or Capex outlays for both of the countries that you mentioned. All of them have niche capabilities that the other may not have. And we will continue to display strategic autonomy in our procurement decisions by turning to both of them depending on our actual requirements.
Right. My final question, sir. You mentioned that we're looking to acquire AWACS and more future technology, including 4.5 generation aircraft. So within this fiscal, if you can just broadly tell us what would be the quantum or value of orders that can still be placed that you would be looking at?
Well, as I said, we've already signed up or are about to sign contracts worth 1.5 lakh crores this year. I would say we can probably do another 75,000 odd crores of contracts. Again, I will not discuss individual platforms, but so last year we did 2,09,000 crores, which was an all-time record. The highest ever before that was about 1 lakh crores. We'll do at least that much, if not more, this year. And in terms of division, I'm confident that the procurement decisions of this year will meet the requirements of the three services, and all of their, the division of the budget among the three of them, all of that will hopefully get exhausted.
Finally, one clarion call to the industry.
I think we should be very clear. We should have no hesitation at all. And this, again, I'm saying from the Honorable Prime Minister is very clear that there will be a level playing field for the private sector, that we will be doubling down on indigenization. The three words that he used during the Combined Commanders Conference that you mentioned earlier was, he made it out of the three words, Jai Hind, so Jai. Jai, he mentioned jointness, which is something that we didn't really discuss, but jointness, Atmanirbharta, and innovation. So those are the three pillars that we intend to work on. And that, again, ensures that when it comes to our budget, which is our budget spend, which is what most of our, members of the audience may be interested in, you can rest assured that the bulk of it will be spent within the country. And startups will get a leg up if they do, if they invest, if they come up with good products. We will ensure that whether it is private sector or startups, adequate orders will be made available to them and we will treat all companies, whether they are public or private, as Indian companies first, make no distinctions among them.
Right. So jointness, Atmanirbharta and innovation. Very important messages there, sir, that you've shared with our audience. Thank you very much for joining us, taking out time to give a sense of the next 15-year roadmap of the Indian government.
Thank you.